I want to create a low-resolution graphics engine for my old 8-bit BBC Micro. I'm going to use its Teletext mode because it uses very little memory and should be fast. But can I actually make graphics that will be good enough for gaming? We've learnt a lot about coding and graphics since 1981 when Acorn released the BBC Micro. But the hardware limitations of machines like the BBC, Sinclair's ZX Spectrum and the Commodore 64 make coding on them an interesting challenge. I love the idea of trying to get the most out of these computers that pioneered home computing more than 40 years ago. To put the problem into context, an 8-bit microprocessor has an 8-bit data bus and a 16-bit address bus. That means it can access just 64K of memory at any time, with each piece of data representing an integer decimal number between 0 and 255. That's incredibly restricted by modern standards. With part of the accessible memory taken up by read-only memory storing the operating system and basic language, and any graphics also taking its share, that might leave you with just 10 or 20K to actually use. Even if your 1980s computer had a graphics chip that could render more than 16 colours at high resolution, you wouldn't have the memory to store it, and that's even before you start thinking about the performance. The BBC Micro ran at 2 MHz. Compare that to a modern 64-bit multi-core 5 GHz processor. So the first challenge is to create a simple graphics library that doesn't use too much memory and is fast, effective and functional for gaming and other applications. The BBC has several graphics modes. Modes 0 to 6 are the normal modes handled by the video controller. Some allow graphics and some are text only, but Mode 7 is special. It's designed to be Teletext compatible and is a character-based standard for storing colour text and simple graphics in just 1000 bytes. Teletext was designed to send data with everyday TV pictures so you could pull out pages of news, weather, sports results and the like from your television in the days before the internet was commonly available. For that to work in a timely manner, the data had to be compact. That sounds great. Colour graphics in 1K. Compared to 20K for the modes commonly used for games, it seems too good to be true. And here's why it is. Teletext graphics are tricky. For text, you get 40 characters by 25 lines, which is nice and clear to read on an old telly, but the pixel-style graphics are made of standard characters split into 2x3 cells, so you only get 80 by 75 resolution. That's a lot less than Mode 1's 320 by 256. You also need to put a special character in to change colour or tell Mode 7 to use graphics rather than text, so you end up with blank spaces on screen where these control characters are. But developers have had good results using Mode 7. Acornsoft released Arcade Action, a collection of games that would work on the cheapest 16K BBC Model A, and shows that games like this can be effective. There's even a Mode 7 version of Elite. In an earlier video, I attempted to write an ASCII text-based game in Mode 7, and I go into some more detail of the pros and cons of Mode 7 in that video. I'll be using some of the lessons I learnt from this when making my new graphics engine. If we can write a fast, effective graphics library using Mode 7, it has many advantages. In terms of performance, if you're handling fewer bytes, it'll be faster. Iterating over 1K is faster than iterating over 20K. And we can free up memory that would otherwise be used for the screen for other code or data. We just need to make sure the library itself isn't too big. For most developers trying to emulate arcade games like Galaxian or Pac-Man, Mode 2 was the likely choice on the BBC. It offered 160 by 256 resolution in 16 colours, although 8 of those colours were flashing, so effectively you had 8 static colours to use. The graphics modes were bitmapped, and you could colour each pixel individually in memory. The BBC Basic Programming Language gave you functions to plot pixels and draw lines and simple shapes. You could also redefine characters to make your own. Each line is represented by an 8-bit byte. We translate the binary representation of the pixels into decimal and use a VDU command from BASIC to redefine a character. Most professional games developers would just write directly to screen memory to render game characters, and they'd use fast machine code, the processor's own low-level language, rather than slow BASIC. I want to cherry-pick the best bits of this for my graphics library, so my initial aims are to provide functions to plot pixels, provide functions to paint sprites, and write these in machine code so they're fast and compact. If you want to know more about the details of machine code, check out the video linked above as a rapid introduction to processors, machine code, and assembly language, or refer to the excellent advanced user guide for the BBC Micro. As I've already said, Mode 7 Teletext graphics are a bit tricky. The screen is really just a text-based display showing 25 lines of 40 characters, and at first sight the graphics are just a collection of special characters representing every combination of 2x3 pixels, but there is actually a pattern to encoding the pixels, and it's published in the BBC user guide. That means that if we want to plot a pixel using XY coordinates on the screen, where X and Y are in Mode 7 pixel terms, we can write code to do that. First we need to know what standard character cell the coordinate sits in, and then calculate the appropriate character code for the pixel we want to set. There are a couple of other things to think about. If something is already in that character cell, we should combine the two so we don't wipe out what was already there. We also need to add a graphics control character on the line to tell the Teletext controller that this is meant to be a graphics character. My first attempt at this is written in BASIC as a prototype to get it working. Some similar code is published in the BBC user guide. Once I can plot a single pixel wherever I want, I can test that I can plot a graph without messing up previously rendered pixels. We can even plot two different coloured lines, but as you can see there is colour bleed where the two lines cross because we can only set the colour of a whole character, not individual pixels, and we need a space to put the control character in. Colour bleed is something that ZX Spectrum owners will remember from some of their games back in the day. I think it's something that we can live with though. It's not particularly fast doing this in BASIC. If we translate the plotting code into assembly language and assemble to machine code, it's much faster. But we're still using a basic loop and trig calculations here, so it's still not as fast as it could be, but shows promise. When we want to put a game character on screen, we want to define the whole shape, something commonly known as a sprite. In Mode 7, because the pixels are big, we don't need many to make a good sized sprite. Remember that 8x8 Space Invader we designed in Mode 2? It was tiny, but 8x8 in Mode 7 is much more substantial. So I'm going to use the same mechanism to define my sprites. Now we need to translate those numbers into Mode 7 pixels. Given that we can plot any pixel on the screen, we could just scan across each line in the definition, work out the coordinates on the screen if it's set, and plot that pixel in a simple 8x8 loop. In this example we use the machine code doplot routine we created earlier, and then, in BASIC, loop over each pixel, calling doplot if the relevant bit is set. The results look pretty good, but it takes about 0.6 seconds. If we want to plot a lot of these quickly in a game, that's not going to be fast enough. There are two performance issues here. Firstly, the basic loop is going to slow everything down a lot. Secondly, plotting pixel by pixel, calculating the position and printing a control character each time isn't the most efficient way. If we take the loops to iterate over the sprite data out of BASIC and into machine code, then things get much quicker. Now it takes about 0.7 seconds, but it paints the sprite 100 times. Ideally, we would provide the sprite definition, the X and Y coordinates, and the colour code to a routine, and it draws our sprite quickly, where we want it, in the colour we want. We can set X and Y registers with the coordinates, and A can take the colour code. If we put a pointer to the address of the sprite definition into a zero-page address, psprite%, then that's all the information the routine needs. Now if we also use a more efficient painting method in our machine code that handles each line of the sprite definition as pixel pairs and only prints a control character when needed, then we can bring the time down to less than half a second to paint 100 times when called from BASIC. With a few further improvements and running the test loop in machine code, we can get the code to render 200 times in 0.26 seconds. That's 800 per second. The machine code size is just 241 bytes, although with lookup tables, the total size is a loosely packed 523 bytes, but it's still not much. Just to test that we can print different sprites in different colours, I have this little demo program. It defines a different Space Invader type sprite and then calls the doPaintSprite routine inside 2 basic for loops to arrange them into a nice multicoloured grid. Our existing paint routine is designed to draw over the top of anything that's already on screen. It combines the existing character as our location with a new character using a bitwise OR. To erase a character, we need to create a mask based on what we want to remove, and then perform an AND with whatever is already on screen. This effectively removes just the pixels we want to. To do this, we provide a pixel mask lookup table and use in preference to the pixel map table. Then we need to adjust the code to use AND. So then we'll have a paint and an erase function for our sprite. But we don't want to copy all the existing code into a new routine, so I provide 2 entry points, doPaintSprite and doEraseSprite. They set up a flag to identify if we want to paint or erase before calling the main code. We also have a small routine that has the code to write a pixel pair into screen memory, but now it can either combine or remove a pixel depending on our flag. This will slow things down very slightly because of the subroutine calls, but saves a lot of replicated code. In order to demonstrate this, we need to fill the screen with graphics so that we can see if the erase function actually erases the shape we expect it to. We still insert the graphics color character, so we get colored bars, but we can see that the invader shapes are removed from the blocks. Now we should be able to animate an invader by drawing it, then erasing it, then drawing it as a new shape or in a new location. And that's exactly what this program does. It alternates the sprite definition used to give the shape change effect and erases and redraws in a new location to give the movement effect. StartFX19 waits for the next screen refresh, and I do it 9 times in a loop so it doesn't run so quick that you can't see what's happening. In this video we've managed to write code to display some shoddy but effective Mode 7 sprites. The definition of sprites is simple and follows a fairly standard approach. The code is fast and compact once assembled into machine code, so we should be able to import it to use in other programs. We can also do some simple animation by changing the shape definition and moving a sprite on the screen. This is just the basics of what I want to do. Next time we'll look at expanding this library into more of an engine, something that handles screen entities, animation frames, display layers and more. Then we can start creating some games, maybe something new or maybe a recreation of an arcade classic. Perhaps we can also look at other applications. If you like what I'm doing, check out my other videos and please like and subscribe.